big way with our AXIO products that we just introduced about a week, 2 weeks ago in Long Beach. How many people have tried them?
Me.
What do you think of them? So the reason I'm really excited about AXIO is because it's a very specialty area of research that I've been focusing on for at least the last decade. This idea of feeling better is, it's the #1 reason people go see their primary care healthcare provider, right? Their physician or whoever it is you go to for your healthcare. You go into the doctor because why? Most people, you're tired, right? You're fatigued. You just feel blah, right? And a lot of times you go in and you say, "Doc, I feel blah," and the doctor, if only they could go to their medicine cabinet and say, "I've got something for blah, and I'll just give you that, and that'll fix you right up," right? Unfortunately, they don't. I have a lot of physician friends who are frustrated by that people are under all those sources of stress that we talked about at the very beginning, environmental stress and stress of our worlds and our lives and bills and our stressful diets and everything else, and that disrupts us, right? But the physician has no pill to help you rebalance your biochemistry. That kind of thing just doesn't exist. So you go in, you feel tired, stressed, depressed, you feel off in some way, and very often what happens is, the doctor wants to help you. That's why they got into medicine in the first place. They want to do something so that you can feel better. But unfortunately, if your issue is a mood issue, your mood is off, it's not really where it should be, you'll probably get one of these kinds of things, right? And these will certainly make you feel different. And there certainly are people who benefit from these kinds of things. But if you just need a little tweak in your metabolism, tweak in your biochemistry to get you back to where you want to feel good and feel happy, you might not need one of these big sledgehammer kinds of very powerful, potent kinds of synthetic pharmaceuticals. If you go in and your feeling is because you're tense and you're restless and you can't relax, you might get one of these kinds of things, right? So these are all multi-billion-dollar products in and of themselves, but it might not be the right tool for the job. If your brain fog is there and you can't concentrate, you can't stay on task, you might get one of these that just came up, one of these focus kinds of drugs, like a Ritalin or an Adderall or something like that. And if you're just generally sort of physically fatigued, you might reach for one of these and self-medicate with the Red Bull or the Starbucks or whatever your poison is, right? If we think of energy in bigger terms like this, right, and we ask people, I have a slide later on that says, what does energy mean to you? But I'll talk about it now. When we study people and we actually ask them and query them and get down to the lower levels of what's driving their fatigue, what we often find is that they feel a mood issue, but they're not going to say that their mood is low. They're not going to say they're depressed, for example. They're just going to say, what? Tired. I just, dragging myself through the day. I can't get my mojo back, right? Sometimes that person will have brain fog. They can't concentrate, right? And we can measure that in our studies, and we measure it as something called confusion. But they're not going to say that they're confused. They're not going to say that they're muddled. What are they going to say? They're tired. They're just going to say, I'm just tired, right? You're stressed out. You're worrying about your bills. You're sitting in traffic. You can't get enough sleep. What are you? Just tired, right? So people think that they're tired because of all these things that are happening in their bodies. And when you reach for a Red Bull because you're tired and you feel fatigue in your body, that's perfectly logical for you to do, but it doesn't fix what you're feeling, right? None of these fix what you're feeling. And when you think of all of those triggers of fatigue, it's really more like $100 billion business opportunity. If we could develop a product that flipped all of these switches, helped you feel better from a perspective of mood, helped you feel better from a perspective of physical energy and mental energy, and helped you with stress resilience so that you were not as tense and not as irritable and not as anxious, that'd be a pretty good thing, don't you think? Because what would happen is somebody would drink that, they'd get all those switches flipped, they'd feel good in all those ways, and they might come back to you and they might say, my energy is back. Or they might come back to you and just say, I don't know what's in that, but I feel good, right? That's exactly what AXIO is. And we specifically did it, formulated it this way, so that we could get this kind of an effect, this kind of chi, this kind of physical and mental energy, this kind of well-being effect back in the body. Because there's something, I said before, if I can get you to feel better, that's a win, right? There's something else about it. There's something a little more kind of diabolical that's happening under the surface. When we feel that way, when we feel a little bit we want to get out of that. We want to feel better. But the reason we ought to really be scared of feeling that way is that it's a signal in our body that our bodies are what we generally refer to as catabolic. Our bodies are in a situation where they're breaking down faster than they're able to build up and repair themselves, right? So think about that cartoon cell that I put up there before. If you're activating that nerve 2 pathway, you're protecting your body, you're cleaning up that cellular debris and that detritus that's in your cell, gumming things up. You're getting your body back to a state where it can be in balance. If we're not doing that, our bodies are in this quagmire of breaking down, and they can't build back up enough. They break down, they can't build back up enough, and that's being catabolic. And it looks like this when you scale up that individual cell to a tissue, or to a tissue, and then an organ, and then your whole body. These are neurons, and what you're seeing here is a normal stress situation, beautiful neuron, a high stress situation, a neuron that just looks kind of sick, right? It looks physically shrunken. It just doesn't look healthy. And you can look at that one. This is like the supermodel of neurons, right? It's beautiful. It's got a big body. It's got lots of projections. It's got it just in a brain that would be associated with high performance, good memory, good recall, good creativity, good problem solving, all that kind of stuff. This one is not only functionally impaired, so you can't remember things, you can't lay down memories, you can't bring back memories, you can't, just bad. But you can see that it's physically damaged. It's shrunken. It doesn't have as many projections. Some of those projections are actually physically disrupted. So that happens in every single tissue in the body, right? It's happening in your neurons actually pretty quickly. Neurons break down fast when they're under stress, when they're under oxidative stress or inflammatory stress or cortisol stress. But every tissue breaks down. Your skin breaks down faster. That's why when you get a cut and you're under a lot of stress, it doesn't heal as quickly. That's why you get wrinkles that don't go away. That's why when you're in a catabolic situation, your arteries are breaking down faster, and your heart and your muscles and your bones, even something like bones, right, that you think should be these substantial tissues that are solid and they're there for the long term, they'll break down faster when we're under biochemical stress that way. And there's only one tissue that responds oppositely. And instead of being catabolic and breaking down faster, it becomes anabolic and it builds up faster. Does anyone know what that tissue is? Fat. And you say it like, fat. Like this is fat. Darn it. Yeah, it's fat, and it's specifically belly fat. Right? So when we have too much oxidation and too much inflammation and too much of the things that I've been talking about, we build up more belly fat. So here's a normal stress situation, high stress situation. You can see that I've colorized the intra-abdominal fat, the visceral fat, so you can see it better. And it lays down faster. We gain it quicker when we're out of balance in all those different ways. But once it's there, it ends up behaving very much like a tumor, where it creates its own chemicals that go out into the body. It creates its own free radicals. It creates its own inflammatory chemicals that can go out and cause damage in the rest of the body. And so to get rid of it, you really need to go in and short circuit that. You have to control oxidation. You have to control inflammation, et cetera, et cetera. And so if we live in this kind of a world, right, where our diets aren't perfect and our environment is not perfect and our exposure to stress is higher than we want it to be, what do? Right? We ought to eat better, right? How many people in here get their 5 to 10 servings of fruits and vegetables every day? No hands? Okay, there's gotta be, okay, a couple of hands. Good, awesome. I knew your hand would go up. It's hard to do, right? I already asked the question about sleep. If this is the world we live in, we need to do as much as we can. We need to take every tool we have access to, right? So I want you to eat your 5 to 10 servings of vegetables. I'm a nutritionist, right? I want you to be physically active on more days of the week than not. I want you to try to get to 8 hours of sleep. I want you to reduce your stress. I want you to do all of those things that we already know, right? Did I just say anything in the last 30 seconds that you haven't heard before, 1,000 times before from somebody or read in a magazine, right? But it's hard for us to do that. So that's where I think these products come in, a product like Protandim, a product like AXIO, a product like True Science, that can help us sort of fill that gap when we can't do all those things we're supposed to do to keep ourselves in balance.